The essence of these regulations is that a part of this United Kingdom should be subjected to regulation governing energy-related products, not by the laws made by this Parliament, not even by the laws made by the devolved Stormont institutions, but by laws made by a foreign Parliament, initiated by an unelected foreign institution, namely the European Commission, and that those are the laws which should be imposed on consumers and citizens of Northern Ireland. And that is because the right to make those laws, which any rational observer might have expected, that the right to make the laws of any part of a country would rest with the elected representatives of that country. But in fact, pursuant to the Protocol/Windsor framework, the right to make those laws was surrendered to that foreign polity. So that we have this absurd situation illustrated by these regulations, that 7 new EU regulations are enforced automatically, unamendably upon citizens of the United Kingdom, whereby the very Parliament of that United Kingdom is prohibited from changing, amending, disapplying, or doing anything other than applying them because of the surrender to the EU of the lawmaking powers on these issues. It's all set out in graphic, frightening detail in Annex 2 of the Protocol, where you read 289 areas of law where the United Kingdom no longer, for Northern Ireland, can make any of those laws. And this is one of those ambits or areas of law. And of course that has many ramifications, including the fact, and the very important democratic fact, of disenfranchising the people of Northern Ireland. Because a fundamental principle of this nation, and indeed of any democratic nation, is that you live under the laws made by those you elect. But these laws are made by those no one in Northern Ireland elected, no one in the United Kingdom elected, but laws made by those who were elected by 27 foreign countries. That is the absurdity of what has been imposed in these regulations. And that of itself is of immense constitutional significance. And that, in truth, is why there is no consultation. There is no consultation about whether these laws should be applied to Northern Ireland or not, for the very simple reason that if there was, and the consultation suggests that they shouldn't, it couldn't be adhered to. It would only show up the impotency of Parliament and the institutions in the United Kingdom, because the right to make these laws has already been surrendered to a foreign Parliament. Hence, the view of the government that there's no necessity or indeed point to consulting, because your hands are tied. And yet when it comes to the suggestion that there might be similar regulations imposed in Great Britain, there has to be a consultation. Paragraph 72 of your explanatory document says there'll be such a consultation. Why? Because that's normal process. You don't impose something without going through the due process of consulting about it. But the very antithesis of that is what we're doing here tonight. We are imposing upon Northern Ireland that upon which we will not consult, because we've already sold the right to consult and the right to make any decision other than to impose them. But it's not just a constitutional issue. It's a practical economic issue. It applies to the vast range of energy-related products, from smartphones through to tumble dryers. But let's take the tumble dryers as an example. There are basically two types of tumble dryer. There's the convector or vented and the heat pump tumble dryer. Under these regulations, it will become illegal to have a convector tumble dryer in Northern Ireland. It will be illegal for a retailer to sell one in Northern Ireland. It will be impossible for a manufacturer in Great Britain to complete an order to Northern Ireland for a convector tumble dryer. And a convector tumble dryer is such that it will operate at lower ambient temperatures. So many of them are in garages attached to houses, where a heat pump one wouldn't operate in those colder temperatures. So what we're saying to the people of Northern Ireland is, you cannot any longer have a British-made convector tumble dryer in your garage. Why? Because the EU says you can't. I think of the magnitude of the absurdity of that citizens of this United Kingdom are dictated to, not by the democratic mandate of this House, but by the undemocratic control of a foreign parliament. And that is the abiding absurdity of these regulations. And the government's answer to all of this, in part, is going to be, and we're going to see it tomorrow in the product regulation bill, and we're seeing it in the government's approach to these regulations. The government's answer is, well then we'll probably just align the whole of the United Kingdom to the same EU standards. What was the point of Brexit? The whole point of Brexit, we were told, was so as we could be master in our own house, make our own regulations. But now, we're going to simply re-regulate back into line with the EU. So, I do say that this is a very retrograde step. And one other very important thing about these regulations, they provide that there won't be a further debate about matters such as this with further new EU regulations. All there will be a statement by a minister that they've come into effect. There will never again, courtesy of what you're approving tonight, be a debate, a discussion, a delegated registration committee, or in the floor of the House about new measures, because that is being surrendered as well. And that was confirmed by Lord Hunt in the other place. So I do say to this committee, though I know, whipped as you are, you won't do it, I do say to this committee that this is a step you should not take. You should have some thought for your fellow citizens in the rest of the United Kingdom, in Northern Ireland, and stand up for the right that they should be governed by laws that this Parliament can make, that this Parliament can change, and not subject colony-like, because that's what it is, colony-like, to the laws